Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Creators Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I've got some exciting cards for you that have tanked in price, and you need to pick these up right now. Let's jump into it. So let's talk about what cards have just tanked in price, what reprints came out, and their impact on the market right now. So if you've been waiting for Phyrexian Tower, and you're not a budget player like me who's like, yeah, $17 is still a lot. It is, but that is a far cry from the price previously. Phyrexian Tower, really quick. A legendary land that you can tap for a colorless or tap, sacrifice a creature, add black. This is a very, very good card, obviously. Great for decks that want to actually sacrifice their own creatures. Obviously, like, Riskrat style decks, essentially. Because, yeah, you sacrifice a creature, you also get value out of that by ramping even further. Creature fodder decks can utilize it as well for like quick ramp too. Regardless, $17 down from around like $30 or $40 or so for most versions. That's a huge savings right there. Next up, Polluted Delta. I'm just going to use this as like a catch-all for the fetch lands that were reprinted in this. But yes, the fetch lands have dropped quite a bit in price. A land that you can tap, pay 1 life, sacrifice it, go get an island or swamp card on the battlefield, then shuffle. Notice that doesn't say basic. Notice that doesn't say tapped. So there you go. Obviously, that's why fetch lands are very, very good. And yeah, there's other fetch lands out there for different colors and that kind of thing as well. Obviously, like, the different color combination. I think it's allies. Anyways. $13.45 right now, coming down from, again, like $20, $30, depending on the version. So, yeah, these have dropped quite a bit, depending on the actual fetch land, but still, they all have dropped in price with this reprint. So if you've been waiting for these to get cheaper, make sure you pick them up now. Moving on. Urza's Incubator, a massive drop for this one. Artifact for 3. This enters the battlefield, which is a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type you cast cost 2 less to cast. So basically, hey, cost reduction and then some for your deck. Yeah, reducing the generic cost by 2 is absurd in basically every single creature tribal deck out there. Except for maybe like elves, which are all low to the ground. So obviously there's some elves that are higher to ground too, but like most elves are like 1 or 2 mana for the most part. So there are very few tribes out there that aren't going to want this in their deck. Maybe goblins as well too, but most typically are going to get a lot of savings out of this. And again, with savings, $11.33 right now, down from around like $30 or so, $20, $30. So a massive drop, a card that is pretty much always going to be in demand in Commander because tribal decks are so popular in Commander. I mean, if you add up all the tribal decks out there, I'm sure it's the most popular theme technically, right? But, I mean, obviously, if you're like, well, that doesn't count because dragons are this and elves are that, but they all want Urza's Incubator, essentially, except for maybe, again, very specific low-to-the-ground tribes. Most tribes, though, would love Urza's Incubator. So, yeah, $11.33. Quite the deal, again, if you've got the budget for it. Next up, Akroma's Will. A card when they printed it was like, oh my goodness, this does everything. Everything. Instant for 4 mana and white. Choose one. If you control a commander, you cast a spell, choose both instead. Hey, you're playing commander. Hey, you're built around commander. You're probably going to have your commander in play. Get both things. Creature control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Creature control gain lifelink, indestructible effects from all colors until end of turn. This is an I win the game card. It's also I protect my entire team from basically anything card as well. So, and sometimes both at the same time. But basically, a card that is a massive, massive play. Again, make your creatures near unblockable, probably. Again, like your opponents have to have a bunch of flying, colorless creatures, essentially, to be able to block your creatures. So if you're swinging out, good luck to them for having that. I highly doubt they do. You also can swing while keeping your creatures back for blocking if you need that. Double strike hitting twice as hard, gaining a ton of life, and also indestructible. Hard to deal with. $9.31 right now, down from about half of where it used to be, essentially around like $20 or so. So yeah, a great card for main decks out there. A lot of go wide strategies love this one. Next up, Ruby Medallion. This is again just going to be another placeholder for all the medallions, okay? So keep in mind all the other ones, which is a good amount of play. Except, I mean, green sees a decent amount of play too, but like, yeah, the other ones see a little more play than green. Ruby Medallion artifact for 2. Red spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Very good, again, cost reduction. We talked about that with Urza's Incubator, obviously, but cost reduction is a crazy good version of, I was going to say, like, ramp. it's not really ramp technically, but like it is better than ramp in a way because you're just like saving more mana over time. So yeah, very, very effective, obviously, especially for monocolor decks where it's like all your spells are reduced. Good for you. $6.25 right now, down from like $10 to $15 or so, depending on the print. So yeah, a huge savings for all the medallions. If you're waiting for the medallions to get cheaper, whichever one, essentially, make sure you're picking them up shortly. Next up, Goldspan Dragon. Yeah, when this thing was printed and called Heim, it was like, yeah, this is gonna be popular and expensive because treasures are popular these days. And some cards with treasures are expensive, obviously, because I think treasure now is like the number 2. I just did an episode on this. I should know this right now. It's either number 2 or number 3 most popular theme out there. I think it's 2, which is crazy. Dragon for 5 mana and red flying haste. Attacks becomes a target of a spell, create treasure token, which is already a great thing. The most important thing, though, is treasure control. Have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. Basically, you double up your treasure's effectiveness, which is just crazy because treasures are already incredibly powerful. This is like, you know what's better than a what is it? Not Mox Lotus. Lotus Petal? Yeah, 2. You get a double Lotus Petal, essentially. $6.12 right now, down from about like $18 or so. So like a third of the price. So again, if you've got one of the many treasure decks out there that are popular right now, you might want to pick this up while it is currently cheap. So there you go. Next up, Eldrazi Temple. What kind of deck are you going to use this in? Eldrazi, yes. It taps for 8 colors. Tap for 2 colors. Supposed to be able to cast colorless Eldrazi spells or activate abilities of colorless Eldrazi. If you're in a Eldrazi deck, I guess I used to say that it's always colorless. It's not always colorless these days because, well, I guess more fun was always a thing. Sure. But now we've got 2 commanders that are 5 color Eldrazi commanders themselves, which is crazy. But yeah, if you have a colorless deck that has Eldrazi in it, you're like, oh yeah, it doesn't want to take up a spot in my deck at all because it's a utility land. And if you're in a colorless deck, you can use all utility lands, though I recommend still having some basics too, like some wastes. That being said, yeah, if you have an Eldrazi deck, this is amazing. This is either, just tap for a single mana if you need that for a different spell, or hey, I'm a double land, essentially. I am a ramp for you, a ramp land for you. A Temple of False God that is always active, essentially, for your Eldrazi spells. $6, down from around like 10 or so it's good savings there. Moving on. Eldrazi Conscription. This is just such a spicy card that I wish was budget-friendly because it's just so spicy. 8 mana, Eldrazi Aura, enchant creature gets +10/+10, has Trample Annihilator 2. Yeah, hey, turn one of your teeniest, tiniest creatures, or maybe a giant creature, into something even more massive. And of course, the most important thing, though, is, all the things, but yeah, Annihilator 2 is gross. Just saying, like, okay, I swing, you sacrifice 2 things because I swung this little creature at you. Great. Oh, by the way, little, +10/+10, Trample, lots of ways to hurt you with that. And of course, there are certain commanders out there, certain cards out there that can help cheat, like auras in a player, cheat them out in one way or another from your graveyard, from the hand. You can do a lot of spicy things with this. $5.50 right now, a good finishing card for you. Throw this on your commander and probably become a 2-shot, if not a 1-shot KO with certain commanders once they're pumped accordingly. But yeah, down from around like $15 or so on average. Next up, the Reaver Cleaver. What a clever name. Equipment for 3 mana in red. It's legendary as well. Actually, I didn't realize it was legendary. There we go. Quick creature is ++1. It has Trample. Whenever this creature was combined into a player Planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens. Like I talked about earlier, treasures are exploding in popularity in Commander. It started off, in like Ixalan years and years and years ago, and it was just like, oh, that's like kind of cool, like couple treasures here and there. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh my goodness, they are everywhere. It's kind of hard to remember a game where you haven't seen a treasure in play. Yeah. They definitely exist. I'm sure I'm just forgetting them. But, like, typically, at the very least, you're getting like, oh, yeah, I make a treasure with this. I make a treasure with that. This is like, I make all the treasures in the world. Again, you just throw this on a creature that's going to be hitting hard already. Cool, you hit someone for 10 or whatever with your creature. Great, they made 10 treasures. It's probably game with how much extra value they have right now and how far ahead they are on mana above you. $5 right now, which is a huge savings from around, like, again, $15 to $20 or so. So that's a massive savings. Equipment decks can obviously utilize this. Like a Voltron deck could utilize this as well. Big creature deck can utilize this as well. A lot of different decks can utilize it. Next up, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. Oh, $5 right now. A giant savings from earlier. Again, probably like 2 times 3 savings, essentially. Again, $10 to $15 or so previously. Each land is a forest, each other types. Legendary land. yeah, I mean, just, hey, perfect mana fixing for green for you. And for everyone else, technically, but yeah, you're probably going to take advantage of that more often than the other players if you're playing this kind of a land. Also, like, Legendary Tribal can utilize it as well. It is a legendary permanent, so keep that in mind. But yeah, basically, I mean, it's not quite as good, I would say, as Urborg, because Urborg, like, works incredibly well with certain things. They're like, hey, based on the number of swamps you have. Green has that too, like the number of force you have as well, but it's not as seen play in Commander as much. Like, they're like, more like, oh, I get power based on the number of force you have. It's like, good for you. But still, it's very good for mana fixing. Obviously, can be utilized in other cool things as well. Yeah, good savings right there, right now. Next up, Recruiter of the Guard, $5 right now, down from $15 or so dollars. Getting massive savings there. Human Soldier for 3 mana in white enters the battlefield. You may search alive for a creature card, toughness 2 or less, reveal up in your hand, then shuffle. Obviously, a very good card when it comes to getting specific creatures for combos and whatnot, essentially, or just very synergistic things as well. 2 creatures for the price of 1 in a way. I mean, you still have to, like, get the other one, play it. But still, like, if the creature's got toughness 2 or less, you probably can play it for very cheaply, most likely. So, yeah, just go tutor out the best creature for the scenario that you're in, or again, go tutor out that combo creature that you have that has toughness 2 or less. So there you go. $5 right now, again, down from around 15 or so. Moving on, Dryad of the Elysian Grove, a Nymph Dryad for 3 mana in green. We play this land each of your turns, land you tour every basic land type of other types. Oh, goodness. Okay, so, like, with, like, these Courser of Crufix type cards, I just say it's like at 3 mana, they deal with lands in different ways, essentially. They give different benefits with lands. Yeah, being able to play extra lands is amazing, number one, because that is just, it's ramp as long as you have the lands in your hand, which if you're playing a deck that's really big on landfall or, you know, lots of lands, then obviously you probably have lands in your hand, or you got ways to, like, bounce them back and replay them for landfall and that kind of stuff. But also, like, perfect mana fixing, that's huge. This has, like, both sides of the coin that are great. Like, usually when you have one of these, it's, like, one or the other. This is like, no, you get, like, both benefits. You get, like, extra ramp and also perfect fixing. Good for you. Also, like, domain works well with it too, I guess, but still. What matters with this one, again, is all the things that you want to do in Commander. Ramp, fix your mana, good for you. $4.92 right now, down from around, like, $10+ or so. So, again, good savings right there. Again, a card that's probably going to be in demand for quite a long time. Also, it is an enchantment, so keep that in mind because, yeah, Enchantress decks can utilize it as well to great effect. Moving on. Apex Devastator. One of the just most, like, fun designs of a card of all time. It's, like, super simplistic, but hilariously fun for players to display. It's a 10/10 Chimera Hydra for 10 mana. What's fun in Commander? Randomness. So there you go. I mean, randomness for you, I guess. I don't really necessarily like when players play, like, Chaos decks, which is, like, just a personal opinion of my own. But, like, you just Chaos my entire board and then I just get, like, random things. It's like, okay, well, we're just, like, rolling the dice to see who wins. Which I guess is kind of like this, but not really, because, yeah, there's ways to manipulate this. There's ways to do some crazy things with it. 10/10, that's Cascade, 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 Cascade. So, yeah, just keep revealing off the top of your library, hit 4 potentially monstrous things, and, yeah, just completely change the entire game by playing 1 spell. Obviously, it works very well with commanders that have a lot of big creatures in the deck, big, you know, other things in the deck that you can cast. And on top of that, things that can, you know, benefit you from casting from exile, etc., etc. But, yeah, down from, again, this is, I didn't realize the first reprint of this ever, looks like. Outside of a Magic Online promo, which does not count because it's not an actual print. But yeah, $33 or $14 for the other version of it, I guess. Yeah, I mean, around $20 or so, I guess, on average or so. But yeah, $4.22, quite cheap compared to where it was. I can see this one going up in price again because players will also love Hydras too, so keep that in mind. But yeah, a lot of fun to play this card. Next up, Farewell. Yeah, this card is always going to be popular in Commander, pretty much. Maybe not like 10 years down the road when they have like, well, I exile all the things that I want to exile in for 3 mana. Power creep. But yeah, this one just so good. Sorcery for 6 mana in white. Choose 1 or more. Exile artifacts, all creatures, all enchantments, all graveyards. Pick and choose whatever you need for the situation that you are in. Again, just completely, perfectly say, like, I don't like 1, 2, 3 things. Cool. Those 3 types of things are gone. I don't like everything. Everything's gone. I want to keep creatures in play because I've got the best creatures. Cool. Do that. Regardless, it's a very flexible, very amazing board wipe. The second that they printed this, I believe was in Kamigawa. It's just like, yeah, it's going to be popular. $4.15 right now, down from around like $8 or so. It's seen some reprints recently, like, okay, Doctor Who, Murders at Call Out, Commander, Fall, like all like Commander. It's all in Commander Precons essentially. But yes, it is starting to see more and more reprints going down in price. Next up, Selvala, I should say, Heart of the Wilds. An Elf Scout, that is a very, very popular, very, very powerful commander and good card in the 99, of course, as well. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. Pay a green and tap. Add X mana of combination powers, X the greatest power of creature you control. It's absurd. This is a card that, yeah, the card drawn is very nice, obviously, and you can have it in the deck for that, because if you have, like, a bunch of big creatures in your deck, you're like, I'm going to be the one who gets the most benefit out of this. Yeah. But also, I mean, having just a bunch of big creatures in your deck is, okay, cool. I get to tap this for, like, 20 mana or so with, like, doubling effects. Maybe even some untap effects as well. But yeah, being able to just tap this for an absurd... This, like, can tap for, like, more mana than, like, any other Mandork, potentially. So, yes, it has absurd potential. And I'm not talking about, like, going infinite. Like, Mandorks can go infinite and whatnot. But, like, the amount of mana this can tap for quite easily, quite quickly, is absurd. So, yeah, $4 right now, down from around 12 or so. Quite the savings there. Next up, Archon of Cruelty. Just a big, fun card for you, not for your opponents, really. A 6/6 flying Archon for 8 mana. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks target opponent, sacrifices a creature planeswalker. Discards a card, loses 3 life. You draw a card, gain 3 life. All the bad things for them, all the good things for you. It's kind of like a cruel ultimatum, but like repeatable on a body. Again, ETB, keep that in mind. So yeah, blink effects do work on this. Feign death type effects do work on this too. Or attack, obviously. Extra combats work too. But yeah, $4 right now. This I didn't realize this is the first reprinting of it, but yeah, down from around 10 or so. But apparently the promo version must be very good. $25 for that one, but yeah, still down quite a bit. Next up, Lightning Greaves. This one sees a lot of reprints of Commander products. It's starting to see more and more. Again, Doctor Who. Apparently a Secret Lair drop, Fallout, Ixalan Commander as well. Interesting. It is seeing more and more reprints, obviously. For a while, Wizards wasn't doing it. They're like, we don't want Shroud to be recognized as a thing ever again. It's like, well, you kind of, you know, the ship sailed on that one. Like, it's a popular card. You're going to have to keep reprinting it at some point. Equip 0, creature has haste and Shroud. Yeah, it's so good. So incredibly good. Yeah, you can't target your own thing with it anymore, but that's fine. You can't target, you know, oh no, my creature's got Shroud. Most likely you have a commander that you just like want to protect from your opponent's thing, so you don't care about targeting it again. And also being able to just grant haste to all your creatures is absurd. Absolutely absurd. For free. You're just freely granting haste. So again, you play a Mandork, you're like, oh, I'd like extra mana now. Put that on it, tap it, cool. Move it to another Mandork, tap it, good. Quite good. $4, down from like $5, $6 or so. But yeah, again, this one just keeps seeing more reprints, and the price is going to keep going back up because of the demand for it. And yeah, just to point out with Nadu, works incredibly well with Nadu, like any other Equip 0 like Shuko. Moving on. Morophon the Boundless, $4 or so right now, down from around $10+ I remember when this thing was like $35 plus, because this is like the catch-all commander for tribal. It's like, if you have a tribe that you love, like, say, Starfish, I guess, I don't know, that doesn't have a commander, it can be the commander for that. Like, for the longest time, it was, like, the Werewolf commander. It was also, like, the Eldrazi commander for, like, 5 color Eldrazi. Now we have some of those. That being said, you could be like me and just build, like, a Morophon Monuments deck where you're just trying to play Shrieking Drake infinitely, which is funny. Maybe. Anyways. And just battlefield, choose a creature type. Spells you cast, chosen type, cost Wooburg less to cast. Reduce the only amount of color mana you pay. Other creatures chosen type you cast, chosen type you +1/+1. It's an Anthem. It's cost reduction. The cost reduction is absurdly good. So yes, you will see this in play in the 99 of tribal decks as well. 5-color tribal, obviously. But yeah, it's a very popular, very good card. And not necessarily a commander that is always going to be built in monuments, but I think it should be. Anyways, $4 right now, again, down from around 10 or so. Next up, Eldrazi Monument, a card that is not always for Eldrazi decks, I will say, which is kind of like interesting. Whenever you see like the word like Eldrazi, it's like usually like Eldrazi Temple. Yes, of course that's Eldrazi decks. This is like, no. Maybe, but no. Creature control get +1 and have flying indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. If you can't, sacrifice Eldrazi Monument. I guess if you have like a go wide Eldrazi strategy, which is like a bunch of spawns and scions, sure. But if you just have like I've got 3 big Eldrazi in play, you probably don't want to sacrifice those. Regardless, this is a crazy good Anthem, and I mean, the most important part of this, to me at least, is the indestructibility. There's not very many ways to give your entire army indestructible, like, perpetually. Sure, there's a downside to it, but again, some decks don't even consider that a downside, like Aristocrat-style decks, like, cool, I sacrifice a creature when I want to, yay! Yeah, $4 right now, down from around, like, 10 to 12 or so quite a good amount of savings right there. Yeah, a great card, actually, for, you know, go-wide strategies, essentially, and Aristocrat strategies as well, if they want to protect certain things, and, of course, are okay with sacrificing a creature every now and then. Moving on. Forsaken Monument. Do you have a colorless deck? Cool. Throw this in it if you've got the budget for it. That's basically it. this is just a really good card for this. It's hard to argue against this card in those decks. Ledger Artifact for 5. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever you tap a permanent for colorless, add an initial colorless. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. I guess the only scenario where this wouldn't be a card you consider in a colorless deck is if you, I don't know, like every single one of your mana rocks taps for 1 mana of any color or something like that. Like you have a bunch of manaliths in your colorless deck, but your lands would still be tapping for a colorless. Like, yeah, if you have a colorless deck, just because literally that middle part where it's like you double up your mana, it's hard to argue against this card because it doubles up your mana. Even if you have no creatures to pump in the deck, even if you don't care about gaining life, it's just such a good card. It is such a good card. Your colorless deck right now, yeah, you're saving about half or so right now, where it's at around $3.66. Next up, Basuva, a very, very strange card. You may have an enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any land on the battlefield. I mean, it's kind of funny that like you may, because you don't have to, because I guess if this is the first land played, like they wouldn't be able to, enter and make it something else. But you're going to be doing that. If not, it doesn't do anything. So it's a very, very good card when it comes to specific lands, obviously. If you have like another great land in play, cool, I get a copy of that. And also I'm sure some combos as well and that kind of stuff too. But this is one where, yeah, I mean, it's very specific on what kind of decks want it. So if you have a specific deck that wants it, good. Like, it finally got like an actual reprint. Really, like $3.63. I guess remastered, it was reprinted there too. But yeah, down from around $16 or so. Quite the savings there. Next up, Toxic Deluge, a commander staple for a reason. Sorcery for 3 mana in black, which costs cast a spell, pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. A flexible board wipe that utilizes an abundant resource? Yes. Yeah, sign everyone up for that, essentially. This is a card that has been very expensive over the years just because it's very high in demand in Commander because, again, it is flexible and it utilizes life instead of mana, essentially, to get the job done. And you start with 40 life, which is absurd when it comes to being able to utilize this. Again, it's like, if you're spending this to take out all creatures, let's say, like, there's even, like, an 8 toughness creature you can take out, you're willing to be like, yeah, I'll lose 8 life to take everything out. Cool. Board wipe, gone. It's also flexible in that, like, again, if you have the biggest creatures, yours get to stay in play. You're like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll set it at 6. My big creatures are surviving. Everyone else's creatures are gone. It can be one-sided. You can also utilize it in decks that actually want to lose life, like life swap decks do. Yeah, $3.61 right now for this gem, down from about half or a little more than half from what it has been. Yeah, again, the demand for this one is just always going to be pretty high. Until, again, 10 years from now when it's like this same effect, but for 1 mana. Moving on. Road Titan of Nature's Wrath, great for land ramp and for card draw as well. Enters battlefield, sacrifice unless escaped. Enters battlefield or attacks you, gain 3 life, draw a card, put a land card for your hand into play, and hand on the battlefield. You can also escape it for green, blue, and exiling 5 other cards. A commander as well as a card in the 99. I'd say more so in the 99 for the most part when it comes to its popularity in Commander. But yeah, $3 right now, down from around $12 or so. So some good savings right there. Really hasn't seen like any actual reprints since Theros Beyond Death. They get like the promos, I guess, which weren't really reprints, as well as the Secret Lair Drop, which is not really a reprint in the list, which is also really not really a reprint. So kind of like the first time we've really seen this. Next up, Mana Reflection. Mana is good in Commander. Yes. Commander is also a slower format typically compared to some other formats, so this like really couldn't be all that good in some other formats. I mean, it's good when you get into play, but obviously like those formats might be a little too quick for it. In Commander, it's like, yeah, you can get to 6 mana easy. You're fine. Oh, once you play this, by the way, you're way above 6 mana. Champ for 6 mana. If you tap a permanent for mana, produces twice as much of that mana instead. Again, any permanent, not just lands. Like, still, doubling up your lands is crazy good. This doubles up everything that you're tapping for mana, including mana dorks, including mana rocks. Whatever you're tapping for mana, you double it up, which is crazy good. $3, down from 14 or so. That's a lot. Again, this one hasn't seen many reprints at all. Just one of the reprint Double Masters. So yeah, pick it up while you can right now. Moving on. All is Dust. Yeah, it's a good card. It's a sorcery Eldrazi for 7 mana. Each player sacrifices all permanents that they control that are 1 or more colors. If you're in a colorless deck, this is most likely just like a one-sided board wipe. That's basically what it is. I mean, there's decks outside of colorless that can utilize this too, but yeah, if you are in colorless, this is a 7 mana. I get rid of nearly everything on the board, and my things stay here, which is crazy good. $2.91, down from around $5-6 or so. This one has seen more reprints recently, like Commander Masters wasn't too long ago, I guess, but yeah. All is Dust, going down quite a bit in price right now. Not quite to my budget, but you know, $2.91. It could get there someday, maybe. Probably not ever. Anyways, next up. We got Masquerade Nexus, one of my favorite cards of all time. A card that I was like begging Wizards to print at some point, but actually as a commander, they never did that, but that's okay, I guess. Artifact for 4 mana. Creatures you control every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that are on the battlefield. Pay 3 and tap, create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with changeling. Basically, all your things are changelings, which is crazy good. Because if you do like a Lord's tribal deck where you have like a bunch of different effects that care about like different creature types, they all now are all creature types, which means they get all the different benefits. You do some crazy, amazing things with that. Absolutely love that. $3 or so right now, down for around like $10 because this one just started going up in price further and further and further. Finally got a reprint. You can do some crazy cool things with it. Next up, Herald's Horn. This one again, I started to see more and more reprints. Lost Captains of Ixalan, Commander Masters. I guess recently last year too as well with Middle Earth and Warhammer. It just sees a good amount because it is again a card, like I mentioned earlier, some other tribal cards too. It's hard to argue against this card in tribal decks. Artifact for 3, enters battle, which is a creature type. Creature spells you cast, chosen type cost 1 to cast. Beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, the chosen type may reveal, put in your hand. Basically, like Urza's Incubator. I mean, how they ever like put this as like an uncommon? It's like, are you kidding? It's basically Urza's Incubator, but take 1 off the reduction and then add in card advantage. Like, temperamental is the word I was going to say, but like situational card advantage, but still like amazing card advantage. The more creatures of that type you have in the deck, the more likely you are to draw those cards. Or if you have like top deck manipulation. Regardless, $2.50 right now, down from like $5 or so, so about half price right now. Moving on, Chandra's Ignition, $2.48 right now. This is a card that like was super budget friendly for a long time and then spiked in price. I can't remember what commander. There was a commander that just made this like super expensive very quickly. Let me know if you remember that one in the comments below. But over time, this one has gone up to like $10 or so, down to around $2.50 right now. Sorcerer 5 mana. Target creature control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. Yeah, it's very, very good, especially for commanders that have like deals damage triggers and also just big commanders that can just wipe out everything else again, hit your opponents in the face too, and then just, yeah, they're free. They're on their own. That's your creature now. Nothing else is there. You swing through, you have fun. And then finally, Dark Depths. Dark Depths is a very spicy old card. Legendary Snowland, enters battlefield 10 ice counters on it, pay 3 no ice counter from it. Has no ice counters on it. Sacrifice if you create Merit Lage, a legendary 20/20 black avatar creature struggling with flying indestructible. A weird fun win condition. Like if you can just pull this off and get a 20/20 flying indestructible, yeah, that's usually going to win you the game. Not always. I mean, like a simple bounce spell will do with it, obviously, but still. Yeah, you'd have to pay 30 mana to like totally get all those ice counters off of it, but there's also combos that work with it, like Thespian Sage, etc., that actually can just skip all those steps for you, and you just get your, Merit Lage. So have fun with that. $2.27, a very specific land again for specific decks, down from like $7 or $8 or so, so you get a good amount of savings there if you've been waiting to build a Dark Depths deck. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are on these cards. Are any of the cards of interest to you to pick up? Again, the prices have dropped a ton. Are you interested now in picking them up? Are you a budget player like me and you're like, drop just slightly more? And by slightly more with something, it's like, just drop $20 or so more, please. But yeah, a lot of giant price drops with these reprints. Very exciting. So make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support.